And we are live on Facebook now. Joining us today is Michelle Falzon. And Michelle, we're just going through a little bit of sweaty palm moments because we're having technical issues. Michelle, or Melissa was in and now she's out and you're here. But because it's 10 past 11, we may as well get going, and hopefully Melissa will be able to jump in when she gets her Wi-Fi back working. But Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm really good. The sun is shining. It's all good.
All good. Can you tell people who already, are not aware of you at the Elephant and Castle community what you do?
So I am a yoga teacher. I also am a NLP, so a life coach, NLP counselor, and I trained in hypnosis. So I teach mainly yoga, but I incorporate all of the other things. I practice Reiki as well. So I incorporate all of the other things into my yoga. So yoga is the main base, and I've got the extra bits that I do with that.
Amazing. And Melissa can now join us. And I was thinking too, because you're both Reiki practitioners, maybe there was some kind of energy force going on right now.
Sorry, because it wasn't my fault. Michelle, hi, nice to meet you. I think we're
Hi.
live. Hi. Sorry about that. But again, I can't be sorry because I don't know what happened. Yeah, sorry. Okay, go on. I'm saying sorry a lot. I'm a little disheveled.
It's all okay. Michelle, can you, from where you get to in your qualifications, yoga, Reiki, the other coaching, can you tell us a little bit about the journey that you went through to get to where you are today?
So yeah, it's actually quite funny because when I was about 19, I was training to be an accountant. So I really wasn't in any of this kind of like on this path at all. And I wasn't doing anything kind of spiritually related, or I was just living my life. I was quite an angry teenager. So the organization of doing the accounts really helped me because that made me feel quite secure in myself having that. And I just kind of like felt like I had I call it a calling. I felt like I needed something else, some kind of exercise. So I was trying running, I was trying swimming, I tried going to the gym. Nothing just seemed to kind of gel with me at the time. And then one morning I woke up and it just popped in my head, I'm going to go and try yoga. And at that time, that was in the 90s. So yoga wasn't very popular at all. The only place you got yoga classes were mainly in ashrams, and they were quite cliquey. And I can remember saying to my sister at the time, I'm going to go to a yoga class. And she was like, no, don't. It's a cult. They'll pull you in. And at first I kind of like stayed away, and then I thought, you know what, I'm quite a strong person, I just knew that it would resonate with me. And I went to my first yoga class and I had this softly spoken Icelandic teacher and I was just hooked. One of the things that I realized is I couldn't relax. I was just so rigid and on the defense all the time. And that I started to find that was melting away, and it was just so bliss. And also I was really connected to my masculine side and not my feminine side at all. And so the yoga really brought out that feminine side in me. And again, it was that defense mechanism coming in. I had to be strong. I couldn't be vulnerable. I couldn't let go. I had to make sure that, I was ready for anyone that was going to attack me with my force. So it was quite a contrast with the yoga. And I soon began to kind of feel like I want to teach this. But at that time I was so shy. And I was doing my accounts, I was earning good money. It was a pay rise every year. It was really good, but I wasn't satisfied. I felt like there was something missing. And so I kept on getting this yoga teacher training leaflet handed to me. It was just bizarre. Everywhere I went, there was either somebody saying to me, oh, I'm going to be doing a teacher training course in yoga. and why don't you come? Or you'd be really good at that. Or I'd go to a workshop and then I'd get a leaflet. Or I'd pop into a shop, like a natural health shop, and there'd be leaflets for become a yoga teacher. It was just everywhere. And I decided, I went to a yoga day, and the teacher running that said at the end of the session, look, I'm doing a teacher training course, pick up a leaflet. And I had a little chat to her, and I said, look, I've got some money put aside, but I haven't got all of it, you know. And I thought, kind of in the back of my mind, she was going to say, no, sorry, you know, you can't do it. So that for me would have been like, close that door, it's not going to happen, and move on. But she said, look, don't worry, just give me what you can, come along to the course. I'm not going to stop anybody from like following their journey. So I done the course, really loved it. It really kind of helped me. I think like any teacher training that you do, you're working on yourself before you can work on anyone else. So it really kind of broke me open and set me on the right kind of path. There's a lot of healing going on. And I thought to myself, when the course was over, I thought, oh, well, it's okay, because, you know, I don't have to teach. I can just, because I was still really quite shy. And I literally got home that week from my course, and I got offered a class straight away, which I took. I thought, oh, well, you know, it's a Friday morning, it's going to be really quiet, there's no good, you know. And I ended up having like a full class. And I ended up having a lot of teachers come into my class, which was quite nerve-wracking in the beginning. But then, you know, I thought, well, you know, it's really nice and reassuring that they're enjoying my class, and, you know, and I built it from there. I ended up going part-time with my job at the accounts office. And then eventually I just bit the bullet and gave up my job completely, and just, you know, started to build up my own yoga clientele. And I never looked back. It was the best thing I ever done. And it was just so nice for me stepping onto that journey. I know how much it helped me, and I wanted to be able to reach out and help others. And I wanted to choose my own hours. You know, I was working at a job, 9-to-5 job, but, you know, I always got in early. I always finished late. You know, I was never appreciated for what I'd done. And, you know, it wasn't fulfilling at all. But then to become a yoga teacher, every day was fulfilling. I was choosing my own hours. I was choosing who I worked for, who I worked with. And the clients that I was attracting it was just amazing. It was just a, you know, best move that I ever made. And it was, for me, it was all about connecting to my feminine side and listening and following the leads, rather than being rigid and going against the grain, which is what I was doing at the time. So it really saved me, and I wanted to be able to help others as well. So
you mentioned that there was a lot of healing to do there, and I imagine that healing was within you, right?
Absolutely.
And it's so I'm interested, like, I know, you know, for myself, if I was to go to a yoga class, it would be because I would want to be instructed on how to heal. Where's the balance when you find of needing to go somewhere to heal as a contributor, and then actually becoming a teacher, you know, and how much healing happens when you're just taking part in the class, and then when was your real healing happening, when you started to kind of show people and help others? Where's that kind of, when does that happen?
To be honest, as soon as I stepped on the yoga mat, even before I became a yoga teacher, as soon as I stepped on the yoga mat, it was, you know, it's like a deep connection with yourself. I don't think, you know, we live in a society where everyone's living on the outside of themselves, if you know what I mean, and not really kind of tuning in and connecting to yourself. And so just an hour, I mean, I was just doing an hour a week, and just taking that time to quiet my mind and listen to my body and honor my body. You know, my body was saying, let go. And, you know, before then I was just like, no, you have to be strong. I was wearing this armor, and I was carrying that armor with me. And, you know, yoga, as soon as I stepped on that yoga mat, I noticed, I mean, I can remember my first yoga session, and at the end of the class, you have a 10-15 minute relaxation. And I can remember lying down on the mat with my arms out, my legs relaxed, and my hands were not touching the floor. I was just so rigid. And every time I let go and relaxed, I jumped. And it was like a natural response. It was like, no, don't let go, and just that start, it kind of opened up. I'd say a can of worms, but it was a nice can of worms because it just made me realize, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to cry. It's okay to, let other people around you, because it was I just found going to a yoga class, everybody was really supporting to one another and to kind of like trust. So, you don't need to become a yoga teacher to have that healing. It happens automatically. And I can remember when I first started teaching, I was teaching back then it was called Canons, and it was I think it's Nuffield now. They changed to Nuffield. And I remember taking that first class, and the organizer said, right, this is an exercise class. This is not spiritual. This is, you're not to use any spiritual words, no ohms. It was like, quite regimental. And I can remember after about a month and a half of teaching the class once a week, and I got to know my clients, and there was this lady at the back of the class, and she'd come for quite a few weeks, and just one session she was in the child's pose, and I could see her shaking where she was sobbing. And normally at the end of the class, we have a little chat. Well, at the end of the class, she left quite rapidly, and I thought, gosh, have I done something? I was really quite worried, and I didn't see her for about 2 months. And then one day she just walked back into the class, and she came straight over to me, and she looked like a different woman. She looked just, tons younger. She looked really liberating. She said, I just want to thank you so much. You changed my life. And I said, I didn't do anything. She said, no, you did. She said, that session, she said, I don't know if you noticed. She said, but I just, all of a sudden, I just burst into tears. And she said, and I realized I was in the wrong job. I was with the wrong partner. And she said, and I left that evening, and she said, and I left my job, I left my partner, and she said, and now, she said, I'm running my own business. And she said, and I traveled to Italy, and I bought some fair trade stuff, and I've got my little market stall. And she said, and if I hadn't have come to the class, she said, I would have never have done that. So thank you. And it really surprised me, because I'd trained and I'd been told by my teacher, this happens to people, but to actually see it right in front of your own eyes is quite amazing. I mean, at that time, we're just doing yoga, but it's not just doing yoga. You're doing so much more on the inside. It's like unraveling all of those kind of knots and, and surrendering, really.
Yeah, it is that word of surrender that kept coming up, and acceptance, right? Acceptance, surrender. And it is such, it seems so, these words are thrown around, but to practice it is one of the scariest things, right? And the natural resistance and fear. And I know I've said this before, but like any time for me in my life where there's resistance, I'm like, that's where my learning needs to happen. The resistance,
definitely,
honey, this is where you're stuck. So I'm gonna keep throwing it at you.
Yeah.
What I appreciate so much, sorry, I had a really intense morning. I'm like listening to your wisdom and your words, and it's really lovely. And I think containing all the truth that I felt this morning. But what I really do appreciate is the fact, like, when we do our own healing, it's for us, but it's also not for us, right? Our healing creates space for other people to heal. And your story of that woman just, for me, kind of that reverberated in the awareness field of, because you chose yourself for you, that little feminine call or the whisper inside of you to pick up the yoga course or class, and then the masculine of like doing it, like that balance is so beautiful. And then your healing let this other woman heal in her ways. And I just feel like so in awe of our healing is our own practice, but it's also the consequences of our healing, for lack of a better word,
Yeah.
Reverberate into the whole space. And I just think that's such a powerful thing for all of us, because sometimes it's so hard for us to choose ourselves. But if we know that if I can choose myself even for a second, it also will help my niece or my nephew or my mother or my neighbor, you know? So I think that's just such a beautiful way sometimes to bring it back to choice and love.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I don't have a question. That was just my reflection.
I have a question.
Nick has questions.
Because you were studying you were an accountant. I'm interested to know, like, what led you, like, when you were growing up, what are the ideologies and the way we are guided into saying we have to have this kind of profession, we have to go to university, we have to do this, and when did you start to learn those old ideas, because they are old ideas, because now you do what you do, but when did you learn those, and when did you start to feel, oh, do you know what, this isn't sitting right with me, even though I've got money in the bank, I'm technically showing up in a more than 9-to-5er, I'm excelling in all these ways, but they weren't really fulfilling you. So it's kind of this journey of, when did you learn that you were taught you needed to be an accountant, and then when did you start to have the feelings like, even though I'm showing success, I don't feel right?
I mean, I was brought up in a kind of, my mum and dad both really hardworking, and kind of it's kind of the balance, isn't it? My mum's a saver, and you know, work, and my dad was a bit of a spender, and you know, so as soon as I reached, I think I was probably about 13, 14 when I got my first Saturday job. Just wanted to be independent. You know, I'm one of 6, so you know, there were times where money was really tight, and there were times where then we had money. So you know, and I really kind of, I really, being the youngest of 6, you know, I was always the one that got the hand-me-downs. But at the same time, I respected that my mum and dad worked really hard, and I really didn't like asking for things. So as soon as I could work, I got my first Saturday jobs, just so that I could become a bit more independent. And I mean, going for the accountancy job, I kind of, again, it was, I fell into that. I didn't realize how organized and how methodical I was. And I started in an office, and I was office junior. So I would do jobs for various departments. But the department that I was in was quite a fun department. So I really enjoyed the kind of space that I was in. My boss was really funny. You know, he was just, he was a joker, and it just made it so much more easier to work in that environment. And I ended up doing something for the accounts department, which was completely different. It was kind of stiff upper lip. The manager, the accountants manager, was very, very posh, very, very straight-laced. There were, like, you know, you couldn't crack a joke with him at all. And it was, and he'd asked me to do this job. He gave me about 20, no word of a lie, 20 folders full of paperwork and an Excel spreadsheet, and said, I want all that information in there. And I'd done it in a couple of days. And he was really kind of impressed with how I'd done it. And then he asked me to work for the accounts department. And that's how I kind of got into doing the accounts. And I did enjoy the kind of methodical, I suppose it was a skill that I didn't realize I had. And then from there, I kind of just worked my way up, decided, I mean, they paid for my training. So, you know, it was like a no-brainer. And I think it was when I got into, I must have been about 17, 18, when I got into my next job, where it was a step up, and I was doing more accounts, I was doing payroll. I was kind of like, you know, there was quite a lot of responsibility on me. And I think too, it was that acceptance as well that comes into it, because my mum and my dad, especially my mum, I think more so, You know, she was really pleased, really happy that I, you know, was working and I was earning good money and I was saving, and, you know, and it's that kind of need to please as well, you know. That was actually one of the things that I unpicked when I done my teacher training for yoga. Kind of, you know, please you first, and then it's a bonus if everyone else is happy. If they're not, it's that self-acceptance. Yeah. Because when you look outside of yourself for that acceptance and you don't get it, it's devastating. And so when I got into my second job, again, I kind of just built myself up, and, you know, I done different roles and I learned all aspects of the company. And at that time there were a lot of, it was a woman in a man's world. I was working in an office. I had a lot of knowledge because I'd started at the bottom and I'd built myself up. And my manager, who was brilliant, decided he was going to leave. And then I was left with these two male managers, and they were just, it was this power fight. And they, both of them kind of really, they really didn't like that I knew more than them. And it was that push down. And I think that was the start of it for me. That was the kind of, you know, it made me feel really uncomfortable because I was quite mousy. And so I wouldn't, you know, they'd say things and I wouldn't kind of be rude back. You know, that's not how I was brought up. And so that's kind of like started that, you know, this is, I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be here. But there was that, you know, my mum and dad are really happy. And, you know, it was kind of that conflict. I can remember when I decided to become a yoga teacher, saying to my mum, I'm going to leave my job and I'm going to become a yoga teacher. And she was horrified. And she told me, no, you're not. You are not going to, you know, you're in a good job. You're earning good money. You need to stay where you are. You're not becoming a yoga teacher. And that was, again, it was kind of pushing boundaries, because at that time I was an adult, you know, but yeah, I suppose as a parent now, I'm a parent now, I can see it's I've done things differently. You know, you want the best for your children. So she was coming from a place of love, but, you know, and she was doing what how she'd been brought up. You know, there was a line, you follow that line, you don't step off that line, you keep doing what you're doing, regardless, put your ambitions aside, you just follow that line. And I didn't. But, you know, and I now I speak to my mum about it, and she says, you know, I was so scared for you at the time, but, you know, I realize now that it was the best thing you ever done. I just knew it. I had to do it. And I was quite a rebellious child anyway. So I knew that I'm the type of person, if somebody says to me, you're going to fail, you're never going to do that, I'm the type of person that says, well, you know what? If I'm not going to do it, it will be because I know, because I've tried and I failed, not because you told me. I'm not going to do it. And, you know, that's one of my strengths. That was a negative that turned into a positive, because I was quite stubborn. But, you know, flip it upside down and that can be quite positive for you. So
it's the thing that was inside of you. And this is such a beautiful thing of just choosing yourself, like I said before, and also like recognizing that our parents or people in our lives, like they can love us to bits, but they're also human and sometimes stuck in their own fear. So it's not that they don't believe in us or accept us, it's that fear has like engulfed their own views. So they're coming from that place. That's been a lot of learning too, is like when we realize our parents are humans and sometimes they're just making it up as they go along too, because they don't know. It's like there's all these parenting books, but there's really no like cool book for when your kid wants to leave a like well-earning job. And this was like years and years ago, right? To do yoga, which is what I want to ask you, if you don't mind, this question around, you started yoga in the 90s. I'm just curious to see how you've seen the whole yoga movement and the spiritual development, and now, and like Reiki. I started Reiki 20 years ago when nobody knew what it was, and now it's like a thing every other person is doing. Like, what has been your kind of witnessing this kind of growth of this spiritual wellness, and now with the pandemic, the kind of bringing mental health into the forefront. What's been your kind of take on how it's grown, changed, what's working, what maybe is not?
Yeah, it's quite amazing actually. When I first started, there was only two styles of yoga in the UK, and that was Iyengar and Hatha yoga. And now there's so many. I mean, gosh, somebody said to me recently, oh yeah, I go Broga. And I thought, what's Broga? And it's like yoga for men.
Oh God, I knew that was gonna come. I knew that was gonna happen.
I was like, oh, okay.
Oh no.
I think it's great. You know, there's yoga for everyone. You know, back then, I mean, Iyengar yoga was quite rigid, and you know, it was quite the same. I mean, I don't disrespect any style of yoga. It's, you know, there's something for everyone yoga wise if you want it. Whereas the Hatha yoga was a little bit more kind of like slower and relaxed, and more variations, and you know, and like the contrast in the two. Iyengar, there was no talking in the relaxation. It was lie down, close your eyes for 15 minutes in silence. And whereas with the Hatha, you can kind of guide people and relax people. You know, I went down the Hatha yoga route. That was kind of what my heart wanted. And there was yoga around, but it was either, I mean, as I say, there was some clubs that taught yoga, but it was very rigid. You couldn't kind of do oms. I mean, even the kind of the deep breathing, it was very kind of, there was a line and there were rules and you had to follow them. And if you wanted to start your own class, you had to kind of hire a place out, a church hall, or, you know, or somewhere. I mean, to be honest, church halls are not really the way. I mean, that's something that hasn't changed. You go to a church hall and ask if you can hire the space to teach yoga. It's like, no, because it's classed. They think it's a religion. And I think now there's just yoga. There's so many different styles of yoga. You know, you can just go in and teach. I mean, I teach in a lot of clubs as well, and it's, you know, I have a lot of connections with my clients, and it's really lovely to be able to, there are obviously, you know, you've got to, there are still rules, but you know, you can teach how you want with your energy, your style. I mean, I'm quite energy sensitive, so when I walk into a class, I will pick up on people's energy, and that's what I kind of base my teaching on. Whereas before you couldn't do that if you were working in clubs, you know. So it has changed a lot. It has changed a lot, and I think it's good that it's given people lots of different styles, because it just means that everybody can try yoga. I mean, I teach a lot for over 60s. One of my oldest clients is 97. You know, I teach chair yoga. I just think it's brilliant to be able to bring yoga to the young, to the old, to people that are less able. For me, there is no boundary. You can do yoga. That's it. Full stop. There's nothing stopping you. So I think it's positive that yoga is everywhere now, and it's more popular, and people are opening their arms to it. And even, you know, now with regards to people kind of their thoughts around yoga, you know, whereas 15, 20 years ago, if you said to somebody, go to a yoga class, they'd think of hippies and kind of like, you know, smoking the pipe. And, you know, it's not like that now. People are really open-minded to yoga, and a lot of the older people that I speak to now, you know, with regards to yoga, there's just, you know, they're so much more open than some of the younger ones, because they know how much it helps. Just chair yoga. I mean, the chair yoga is so gentle and so slow, but it just makes a massive difference in people's everyday life. So I think it's changed in a good way.
You're right. There was there's probably is still a little bit of a stigma against it. Like it's, you know, for me, where I grew up, it's kind of this granola eating, yogurt eating, tree hugging kind of thing. And I think because we're coming out of the lockdown, I think about this time last year, and someone had said to me, and I'm like 50 years old. I used to play ice hockey professionally, you know, this kind of like would work out in a gym with heavy weights and stuff, and no stretching, none of that stuff. We always thought it was kind of airy fairy kind of things. And someone said, do a 30-day yoga challenge. And I did 17 days. And it was the discipline of it. It was the feeling, you know, and I would like to do a 30-day challenge. I don't know why I stopped. I think I just had other things going on, but and I feel that it takes kind of people who do have some kind of social media presence, or, you know, professional athletes, elite athletes, especially masculine male ones, who say, I do yoga. And the stigma is starting to change, but I think it's just because the world is waking up. You know, I think we're coming out of this time. It is a time of spiritualness. You talk about the masculine and the feminine, you know, the energies that the planet are all going through right now. I feel right now like it's a really positive time for people, you know, because we have been locked down for the last 3 months again. And hearing people like you talk, and hearing people like Melissa talk, who have no, you know, there's no boundaries when it comes down to talking about spirituality. And it just makes it more accepting, you know, where other people can start to hear it and go, do you know what? I feel like that. I recognize that. I'm going to give it a go. Definitely. And I think it just feels like an exciting time right now.
It really does. It really, really does. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I'm quite open with my classes. When I teach, I do kind of talk about energy and, you know, connecting to your body and tuning into your body and honoring your body, honoring your feelings. If you want to feel angry, feel angry. Don't push it away. You know, acknowledge it, because the more you don't acknowledge it, the more it's going to get louder and it's going to get bigger. And if you keep ignoring it, it's just going to manifest into some kind of ailment, you know, which is going to be harder to move on, you know. And I think going back to your other question with regards to more so recently changes is men doing yoga. You know, I'd say about 5 years ago, probably a little bit more, you know, I started to notice more men coming to yoga. And where I teach in the clubs, you know, you go to the gyms and you see these guys and they're, you know, and their muscles are so big, but the strength, you know, and, you know, a lot of the time I'll be down in the gym and, you know, someone will come up and say, well, you know, I'd love to do yoga, but, you know, I'm not flexible. Well, you don't need to be flexible, but you need to come to, you know, lengthen those muscles. You'll find that you'll be stronger in the, you know, and they'll come to the classes. And, you know, it's nice because some of them will stay and they'll continue, and some of them will leave. I remember when I was doing my teacher training was in Spain. And one of the things we had to do is teach a few classes to the public. And I had this Spanish guy that came now, of course, language barrier, but, you know, copy, he can see what I'm doing. And he was, I mean, his arms were like my legs. He walked into class, and there's a yoga pose called the plank. You know, you do the sun salutation, and I was going through the sequence and talking through it. And we got to the plank, and I'm holding the plank, but I'm talking them through it. And he was adamant on holding this plank. He would not bring his knees down. And I was saying to him, like, drop your knees down. No, he had to hold. And his whole body was shaking. And I was getting quite nervous because I was thinking, you know, in a minute I could see his veins on his neck. And it was the ego stepping in. If you can hold it, I can hold it. And, you know, of course, he couldn't straighten his arms. So the strength wasn't there. And, you know, the difference now is, you know, I get a lot of guys that come to yoga that they persevere, they keep coming, and, you know, they're open to that. Whereas, you know, before, you wouldn't get a man coming to a yoga class. And it's the first thing people say when you say, come to yoga. They say, oh, I'm not very flexible. You know, people think that you need to be super flexible to do yoga. It's not like that, you know.
Yeah. Or that it doesn't give you strength.
Yeah. Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
some of the strongest people I know are yoga people. Like their muscles are not kidding around. They can go toe to toe with anyone who lifts weights.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Michelle, we're coming to the end of our time now, so I just kind of wanted to say thank you. And you know, if you can briefly just describe the next few months for what you're going to be offering and how people can get in touch with you, and yeah, wrap things
Okay.
up.
Fantastic. Well, I'm still teaching lots of yoga online at the moment, and I've done it so that because throughout the pandemic, I wanted everybody to be able to come to yoga. The Monday sessions that I do, chair yoga, meditation, and gentle yoga, are all free. That's done via the Elephant and Castle, so you can get the links from the Elephant and Castle website. And join those. And also my other classes that I teach, again, because I wanted people to be able to come whether they were working or not. I knew that yoga is going to be able to help people through this time. It's helped me. So I've done my classes, COVID prices, £5 a session. If you can't afford it, free. So just come. I want to be able to reach out to as many people as possible. And that's another lovely thing about online. You don't, I mean, I've got people that come from other countries that join the class. Brilliant. And yeah, I'm available. I've got a Facebook just under my name, Michelle Falzon Yoga. And you can connect to me via Instagram, which is from yoga with love _. So yeah. My website as well, which is just my name. So
if you want to just send me those links and I'll put them into the Facebook feed. And if anybody out there needs to get in touch with Michelle, then they can do it that way too as well. So
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been really wonderful.
I'm going to join your club.
Yeah, come along.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
So thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Melissa. And thank you, everyone at the What's On at Elephant and Castle Facebook page. Don't forget to join us this coming Thursday at 11 a.m. where me and Michelle are going to be, I think it's just the end of the month check-in, isn't it?
Circle. Yeah.
Widening our circle. So see you then. Thanks, everybody. And thanks again, Michelle. Have
You're
a wonderful
welcome.
day.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye. Bye.